Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'du, fa'uzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qala Allahu ta'ala fil Qur'anil hakim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. قل رأيتم من جعل الله عليكم الليل سرمدا إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بضياء أفلا تسمعون قل رأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم النهار سرمدا إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بليل تسكنون فيه أفلا تبصرون ومن رحمته جعل لكم الليل والنهار لتسكنوا فيه ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون صدق الله العظيم. The verses which I've recited translate as follows. Say, do you see if Allah were to make the night to continue incessantly, that means without stopping, to continue incessantly on you till the day of judgment? Who is the God besides Allah that could bring you light? Will you not then hear? Say, do you see if Allah were to make the day to continue incessantly on you till the day of judgment? Who is the God besides Allah that could bring you the night in which you take rest? Do you not then see? And out of His mercy He has made for you the night and the day, that you may rest in it and that you may seek of His grace. In other words, that you may rest in the night and seek of Allah's grace, in other words, do work in the daytime, and that you may give thanks. And this is chapter 28, Surah Al-Qaṣaṣ, verses 71 to 73. At this time of the year, in the northern hemisphere, at our London latitude of 50 degrees, and at latitudes higher up, we are very conscious of the shortage of daylight hours. The length of daytime is already less than 8 hours, and it will have decreased by another 3 to 4 minutes on the shortest day, the 21st of December. We clearly feel having lost daylight. The first verse that I recited reminds humanity that if Allah had made the night to carry on and on without ever turning into day, then no one would have the power to bring back the light except God Himself. His law of nature is that He curtails the night. Now, in fact, at higher latitudes in our northern hemisphere, higher than our latitude, there are a number of days around the 21st of December when it is night all the time. This happens in the northern parts of Russia, Canada, Sweden, and Norway. And going even further north, close to the North Pole, it is night all the time for 6 months, from about the 21st of September to the 21st of March every year. It is night all the time. But that night, even that night, is not permanent. From the 21st of March to the 21st of September, the sun is out all the time, 24 hours a day. And that is the extreme end of what we experience in this country in the summer, when the longest daytime in London is more than 16 hours. The second verse I recited is very much like the first one, but instead of a night going on, it mentions an endless day. And it reminds humanity that if Allah made the daytime, the daylight time to carry on without it turning into night, then no one would have the power to bring back the night except God Himself. It is His law to curtail the day. If the night had been permanent without ending, or if the day had been permanent without ending, then life could not have existed on earth. If one side of the earth had always faced the sun, it would be in daylight forever, while the opposite side of the earth would never see the sun and would be in permanent darkness. But this is not so. You may be surprised to hear that this actually does happen with the moon as it goes round the earth. The moon always has one side pointed towards the earth, while its opposite side, the opposite side of the moon, is pointed away from the earth and is never seen from the earth and was never seen till the present space age, when spacecraft would go around to the other side of the moon. Now, if the earth had been going around the sun in that manner, with one side of the earth permanently in daylight and the other side permanently in the dark, then life could not have existed on either side. The bright side would be far too hot and the dark side would be far too cold, but there would be other problems as well. Things in nature, such as plants and animals, at any location on the earth, require to experience both day and night. It is an absolute necessity for the existence of any kind of life on earth that there has to be night and day following each other. The third verse which I recited declares that for humans it is a mercy that night and day follow each other, and that humans, it says, is a mercy that they need to rest as well as work, and that they should thank Allah for both opportunities. It is stated in the Holy Quran numerous times that this alternation of the night and day, one coming and the other going, then the first one going and the other one returning, that this is a feature of nature that contains signs for people who think and learn and study. There is a prayer in the Holy Quran in which we address Allah and say, "You make the night to pass into the day, and you make the day to pass into the night." Chapter 3, verse 27. This indicates the crucial importance of this phenomena because we call upon Allah and recognize that He is the one who brings this about. It is also a point to remember that whenever the Holy Quran refers to some phenomena in the physical world by which human life benefits physically, it also directs our attention to God's laws relating to the spiritual life of humans. Therefore, the mention of the night and day here, and it says they could continue permanently unless Allah pleases. This also relates to how guidance comes to humans from God for their spiritual welfare. The first verse I recited says that when humans are in darkness, lacking knowledge and guidance, It is no one else but God who sends his guidance to remove the darkness and show them light. God says in the Quran, addressing the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this is a book which we have revealed to you so that you may bring people by their Lord's permission from darkness into light to the way of God who is the mighty, the praised one. This is chapter 14, verse 1. So, if we take day and night to mean guidance and ignorance, lack of guidance, what does the second verse mean? That verse says, if Allah were to make the day to continue endlessly on you till the day of judgment, who is the God besides Allah that could bring you the night in which you take rest? Why should man want God to end the period of guidance and light and replace it with a period of misguidance? Is it possible that mankind could ever say, we have had enough of guidance, let us now step into ignorance for a while? Obviously, this cannot be right. So what could be meant here by day giving way to night, even as regards guidance, is that the day stands for the religious obligations that we are required to perform. If we were required to perform them all the time without cessation and do no worldly work, it would be counterproductive to our lives and we would get tired. For example, there is no doubt that fasting is very beneficial for our moral and spiritual development. But we are not required to fast every day of the year. In fact, we've been strictly advised by the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam not to overdo fasting and to resume normal eating as well. So while we must walk in the bright light of guidance, we also need to stop and rest in the shade. Another interesting point about these verses is that the first verse, which says, if night was everlasting, who except God could bring you light? That verse ends by saying to people, will you not then hear with your ears? Will you not then hear? In other words, hear this argument. So as you are in darkness, you are asked to hear this argument. In darkness, we cannot see, but we can hear. The second verse, which says, if daylight was everlasting, who except God could bring the night for you? That ends by saying, do you not then see? It means, do you not then see this point? But anyhow, as you are in the light, you are asked to see this point. These verses also relate to the rise and fall of nations and civilizations. The prayer which I mentioned earlier, that prayer begins as follows. O Allah, owner of the kingdom, you give the kingdom to whom you please, and you take away the kingdom from whom you please, and you exalt whom you please, and you degrade whom you please. And then 2 sentences later, this prayer goes on to say, and I quoted that before, the first part of it, you make the night to pass into the day, and you make the day to pass into the night, and you bring forth the living from the dead, and you bring forth the dead from the living. Chapter 3, verses 26 and 27. Now, when it says here, O Allah, you give the kingdom to whom you please, take it away from whom you please. Kingdom here means supremacy and domination in the world. And after mentioning that Allah gives kingdom to whom He pleases and takes it away from whom He pleases, it is said that Allah changes the night into the day and the day into the night, as I quoted just now. So the night and the day here cannot just be the literal night time and daytime of 24 hours or during 24 hours. It clearly means here the rise and fall of nations. And history shows us this. Nations rise out of obscurity, become dominant in the world and establish great civilizations, while at the same time others who were previously strong, they decline and fall. The Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Romans are examples of great civilizations which came one after another. And following them was the great Arab civilization, which arose from a completely unknown and insignificant nation. Following them were the various European nations. They arose and came into the daylight from their past dark ages and established their rule over many parts of the world. So they were in daylight. It felt great to them at first, having all that power, but eventually it became unmanageable for them. And in accordance with the law of God, their day couldn't last forever. But its legacy and after effects still remain and will not be resolved by turning to anyone except by turning to Allah. And here I may make one extra point. There used to be a saying during the existence of the British Empire that the sun never sets on the British Empire. Now, when that saying became commonly known, people misunderstood it. People thought it meant that those who were repeating this saying, that they meant that the British Empire would last forever. The sun never sets on the British Empire. But they actually didn't mean that. They were referring to a geographical fact. And it was a geographical fact that the British Empire extended from east to west more than any previous empire, all the way from Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, round to Canada. And therefore it was a fact that somewhere or other in the British Empire, the sun was out all the time. At any time, the sun was out somewhere or other in the British Empire. So it started with the sun rising in, say, Fiji, New Zealand, Australia. By the time it was midday there, the sun was rising in India. And by the time it started declining in India, it was rising in Africa. After that, it was rising in UK itself. And when it was setting here, it was rising in Canada. And then after it was setting there, it was rising again in Australia, in the New Zealand or Fiji or Australia. So that is what that saying actually meant, that the sun never set on the British Empire. But of course, if you take it in the other sense, then that day also came to an end, as all such days do. So may Allah then enable us to take the message of Islam along with the deeper and inspiring meanings of the verses of the Quran to the whole world, to all nations, and enable that message to be a mercy to the whole world. Ameen. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil Azim wa nafa'na wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim. Innahu ta'ala Jawadun Karimun Malikun Baruru Rahim.